Ke nna Motshabeng, moradi wa Albertina, Mama Chona, le Joseph Mbutana Moloi. Ke le lekgolokwe le hlaba Botswana, le hlaba kgoho ka lemao ka sebonong, le hlaba le isa kgorong ha makgwakgwane. Makgwakgwane a eja a e halala, a re kgutla hape o e eketsa, motho wa wetsi.
Welcome to The Journey with Mpho podcast, a sacred space for healing, love, and rediscovering your life purpose. Introducing your host, Mpho.
Okay, so let's start with the mic check. We'll do the Tibetan singing bowl because the crystal singing bowl didn't catch the last time. So let's see how we do with this one. Okay.
That was so much better.
Okay, so I think from now on, always use the Tibetan singing bowl. Never the other one, but this one.
Yeah, it was
for sure.
great. It sent me into another dimension. I'm calm. Soraya's not, but I'm calm.
And that's what matters here, Jessica. Soraya isn't a part of the podcast.
Well, she is now.
But speaking of which, let's pause here. I'm going to grab her and then we'll get started, okay?
Okay.
Hello, JWM friends and family. Welcome to part 3 of our conversation with my friends, Naledi and Jessica. It is bittersweet to be at the end of a series we have greatly enjoyed creating and sharing. It has been such a reflective, informative, and truly fun 3-part conversation. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in, shared the episodes, engaged with the content on social media, and connected with our experiences. When we joined forces, our intention was to journey through life topics of interest to us, form a millennial perspective, and we did more than that. We opened the door to our life so you could find companionship in knowing that you are not doing this crazy life thing alone. In part 1, we explored mental health. In part 2, relationships. And in part 3, we are closing off with all things career. We are asking ourselves, and perhaps you, whether or not tertiary education, both financially and career-wise, was beneficial. What workplaces can do to support our mental health, and so much more. Good evening, friends.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you guys doing?
Good.
I'm all right, mommy. How are you doing?
I have baby in hand. I'm handling. Thank you for letting her join. She may be a little bit rowdy, and if she is, we'll have to kick her out. Yeah.
That seems fair. This is a professional environment, Naledi.
Yes, no babies at the office.
She's not even paying bills yet.
Babies are to be seen, not heard.
Oh, we're toxic parenting you. How do you feel?
You don't get a say. Mpho, did you not hear what I just said? Babies are to be seen, not heard.
No, but they're so cute. We must hear them. Okay, so let's get started. Maybe we'll start with you, Naledi. If you did not have the burden of needing money or having to think about how to generate an income, what would you be doing for a living?
Oh, I think the dream would definitely to be a travel blogger. Just going around the world, eating different cuisines, meeting new people, seeing beautiful places, and then sharing my experiences with everyone else. It basically like embodies all aspects of my personality that I love and I love sharing. So that would definitely be it.
I'm all for travel blogging. I've seen your Instagram page and I feel like it's already there. You just need to be traveling somewhere to add that special content, but it's already there.
I need that money. Somebody sponsor me.
Jess, what about you?
I'd probably be doing what I'm already doing because I genuinely love my job. I'd probably just do it for free. So if money wasn't an issue, I'd continue doing the things that I'm doing. I just wouldn't charge anyone anything for my services. I think I was really lucky to land up in a career that I'm both good at and enjoy. There's a lot of things that you can be good at in life, but you hate it from the core of you. And this is just not one of those things. Another thing that I found really funny was that we all started out in the same foundation tertiary qualification, and we all specialized in something different, if I'm not mistaken. I did strategy, Naledi did marketing, and Mpho, you did finance. So
Yes.
That in itself just shows how our personalities are going to lead us in completely different directions.
yeah.
That's very interesting that you would do exactly the same thing you are doing now for free, Jess. Not a lot of people can say that about their jobs.
Yeah, I think it brings me so much joy. And when I am, let's call it consulting outside of work, I do it without charging people. If I have time, then I help people wherever I can to do the things that I already do for the business that I work for full time. So I'm already doing it, not charging people anything, just helping where I can. So I think full time, I would do it pro bono.
Okay. I mean, kudos to you. I'm so happy that you found something that you love and channel that energy in this episode so that the rest of us and anyone who listens can fall into the things that we love doing for sure. Naledi, I think Jess already answered this question in her first part, but what do you presently do to earn money?
I currently do nothing. I do own my own clothing brand, but when my mental health takes a turn and when it took a turn, unfortunately, the company suffers because I do everything, partly because I'm a control freak, but it's also the fun part of owning your own clothing brand is like you can literally do everything and get everything done and do it to your specification. And that's the part of it I enjoy. I get to be a part of every single step to produce the product that I am proud of. But yeah, when you don't have that drive, when you don't have that motivation, you can't do that. You can't make the necessary meetings. You can't meet the necessary people. You can't do the necessary runs to make sure that it is running in a manner that will bring in money. And then, yeah, so that is definitely a downfall to being an entrepreneur and battling depression and anxiety is that your business ebbs and flows. Literally, it goes up and down, literally just based on your mood. Which is also lovely in a sense that there isn't, I don't have the pressure of working for someone. So when I'm not feeling 100% and I know that I cannot produce work of a good quality, I don't have to fight my boss about it. I don't have to plead my case. I can literally just be like, hey, it is what it is. Let me just sit on the bench for a little bit and I'll come back when I'm ready. So yeah, I'm currently a stay-at-home daughter, a role I enjoy very much. I'm very privileged, and that's why my Instagram feed looks like it does while I make no money, Mpho.
I can so relate to your business ebbing and flowing according to your mental health because, like yourself, I'm part time at, and then a lot of the things that I do are business owned, business run. This podcast, starting up Reiki, and sometimes you just don't feel great and you just can't record that one episode or you can't show up for that one meeting, and it means sitting it out, being able to care for yourself. And this is where the benefit is, right? You can take the time out to care for yourself and then step back in and create as freely once you're good to go again. But it's hard. Do you have people that you work with, Naledi, or no?
So I am actually part of a different company that's more into IT and web development and all of that. So I found that because I'm like a serial entrepreneur, like every time I have an idea, I'm like, this must be done. I like bringing in people that I trust and can rely on. So with my clothing, that is solely me, 100% me. So if I'm not up for it, business comes to a halt. With everything else, I can kind of have my foot in different sort of industries and different businesses and still kind of keep up with what's happening there. But when I do need to step back, I know that there's someone there handling it. And it's actually, it's quite a sad situation because you kind of stop trusting yourself. So I don't think I will be able to start a business on my own, owned by me solely, because I don't trust my mental health. And I would hate to see a great idea go to waste because my mind needs a break.
Yeah.
And you can't keep starting businesses and watching them slowly crumble, not because the idea was bad or not because you don't have what it takes for them to succeed. It's just that genuinely in that moment in time, you cannot. And I think that's the saddest thing that my mental illness has taken away from me, is that kind of like gusto personality where, like, in my mind, I've always thought that I can do like anything and everything because like I've proven that I can. But later on in life, I'm realizing that with this newfound aspect of my brain, I am no longer that gusto kind of go for it type of person. And that's what you need to be an entrepreneur. You need to not doubt yourself. You need to not rely on other people's validation. If you have a good idea, you run with it and you know it's going to be successful. Without proof, without other people telling you it's going to be successful, there's like something in your heart. And when your mind is constantly second guessing itself, it's very hard to run with that. So it's also very difficult being an entrepreneur when you're suffering with mental illness.
Well said, well said. I co-sign everything that you said. Resonates for sure. I think the fear of starting something new, knowing that you cannot rely on your mental health, is kind of you grieve. Am I correct? Is there some grief there?
Oh, 100%. You've literally hit the nail on the head. I think your world starts to feel smaller because, like you're saying, you know that you've got what it takes to be this thriving, successful botch bitch just out there dominating. You have faith in every idea that you come up with, and you know that in your right mind, you can take this all the way. So it seems like you have to literally minimize your life just to fit around your mental state. Like you can't go too big. Like you're no longer allowed to go too big because the bigger you try go, the more you will fall when inevitably your brain wants to take a break. And you need to start thinking smaller now. You need to start being more responsible with your ideas. You need to start bringing things down. And like, as an individual, if I am to go through this, can I still handle this? So yeah, it definitely dims your career light when you're an entrepreneur. Even when you're not an entrepreneur, I think even going for a dream job when you're like in any given moment, I may not be able to perform the way I've been performing, the way my boss expects me to perform, the way I expect myself to perform at any given moment. So you might limit what positions you go for. You might limit what companies you apply for. You might limit what industries you go into, because you're like, I'm unreliable to myself. You can't also be unreliable for like a major corporation if you're in this major role and you have to answer to big shots. There's definitely a sense of fear there that you now carry on forever. That sounds so doom and gloom. It gets better, guys, not forever. But you carry it. You do carry it.
Yeah. I hear things that I've observed in myself, how you dispense of your energy, right? Because you have so little of it and you don't know how long it's going to last. And so you do this like strategic, where do I want to put my energy? And you also cap yourself at a certain limit. Like, these are the things I cannot do, or these are the positions I cannot go for, because I just wouldn't be able to survive while still trying to maintain my mental health. But yes, anything you wanted to add to what you presently do to earn money? Maybe you have a side hustle. Do you sell your cross stitch stuff?
I don't have a side hustle. I think what I dedicate my time to is identifying people who need assistance and then probably just assisting them. And I've always wanted to give back. I've always wanted to be part of NGOs and that kind of thing. And I've never been able to get into that. I've always been in either a corporate or a business that wants to make money, which is great because it presents you with a lot of opportunities. But one thing that I felt lacks in my life is just that ability to give back to community, to give back to people. And so anytime that I have extra time, I will help friends, I will help family, anyone who needs it. I think one of the things that makes me love my job so much is that I've been given so much autonomy that I am the architect of my role. So in that, it's not just that I was assigned something to do and I do it. I create that role and I am building on it every day. And I love my job so much because I get to do so many different things. I am the head of strategy, and strategy is one of the core things that I do, but it's not the only thing. I also do marketing, I do graphic design, I do web design. Anything that involves technology, you name it, I can do it. Videography, sound editing, all of those kinds of things. And those are skills that I've learned on the job for the job. And it just stops me from getting bored. And it has made my skill level just expand across so many different areas that I can then help people in those things. Like, oh, you need a video for your business? Well, I can make a video. I can do those things. So it's one of those things where that's how you kind of reconcile what you want to do. And to Naledi's point, I remember in one of my earlier jobs, when we talk about mental health, I would wait until my off time to fall to pieces. I would struggle my way through a work day, be on the verge of tears, and I'd go to the bathroom, have a power cry, and then come back and pretend like nothing happened. Or I'd wait
Like
until
boss bitches do.
yeah. Or I'd wait until the weekend, get into bed on a Friday, and not get out of that bed until it was time for work on a Monday morning. So I think it doesn't just affect your ability to be an entrepreneur, it affects your ability to be someone who functions and works in general. But the pressure of now owing someone else or being on someone else's time made me only fall apart in like my downtime. Any time that was time for me to relax was not relaxation time. It was fall to pieces, be depressed, be anxious, and all of those kinds of things. And then go to work on a Monday and pretend like it never happened. And in my new job and my new role, I say new, but I've been working there almost 4 years. But when I transitioned into this other role, I didn't have to hide those parts of me. I could be really honest about where my mental state was at. And if you have a supportive company, they take that burden off you while you're falling apart and then give it back to you when you have capacity for that. And that's what's important about a business, is creating that community of support. And you don't often see it, especially where people are accountable to shareholders and they have a profit objective. It's very difficult to get that kind of community and support. And I find that in small businesses, you get the support that you need and it enables you to function better, to fall apart without feeling guilty, because at some point, at some time, someone's going to have an emergency, someone else is going to fall apart, and you're going to fill that role of supporting them in their time of need, just like they would for you. So it's not like this thing that you have to feel guilty about. The world keeps turning and people support you through whatever you're going through.
What you just described earlier on, Jess, about mental health reminds me of a phrase I just recently learned, and maybe you guys know it, but high functioning depression and anxiety,
Yeah.
where the
Yeah.
person looks very productive, very like into the work that they're doing
Yes.
and creating, but is also very, very depressed. And I never thought about it that way, but I think that's more what I subscribe to, in a sense. That high,
Yeah.
there's almost like in the office you have this mirror, but you go to the bathroom or you have a break and you're just falling apart, and then you
Yeah.
come back and you put this mirror right back up and you are happy, and you're this, and it's interesting to see our brains function in that way.
Yeah.
It's better to have companies that create space for you to take the break when you need it. They talk about, if you've had a rough customer interaction, feel free to ask for 15 minutes to just take a breather, step aside, and just recoup. If you feel like this has been a really hard week, you can contact our HR support team and see if you could get mental health time off. And so some big businesses really have nailed it down. But to your point, I think in smaller businesses, there is a lot of flexibility. There is a lot more compassion and understanding. A lot of organizations that are major corps, it's harder to get to the person who can make the decisions that can support your mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health seems to be the least of priorities in that sense. And then you spoke about volunteering. Just we're learning so much about you. In our previous episode, you said, I'd love to adopt a child. And now you're saying, I'd love to be involved more in NGOs and support in that area. So I'm falling more and more in love with you. I'm like, can I keep you forever?
I think Jess and I need to stop being friends because she's just making me feel bad about myself. Like, she just listed all the things she learned on the job, and I'm like, hey, dog. You're listing a lot of things. I've lived the same amount of years as you. I could probably do like 2 things on the list that you listed you learned just from a job you've been in for 4 years. But it's incredibly impressive. And I think you are the definition of a high functioning, like depressed person, in a sense that even in your lowest, you still have the capability to put that in a little box, put it aside, do what needs to get done.
Yeah.
And I wish I had that skill, because as much as it's probably not healthy, it is very helpful in life. It's very helpful in society. It's very helpful in being a contributing member to society, to your workplace. And it's a skill I wish could be taught and learned, because it's very impressive how much you can take on your shoulders and how much you can get done at work, even though inside you're falling apart.
I think I convinced myself that there was no other option. Like, it was one of those things where the sky is falling. The world would end if I didn't get this done. And through age and experience, I've been coming to the realization that not everything is going to crumble if I don't deliver. Early on in my career, I was an absolute perfectionist, and it was killing me. It was killing my productivity as well. And one of my earlier bosses tried to explain to me what a minimum viable product was, and I couldn't wrap my head around it, because a minimum was not something that I could do. It wasn't something that I could deliver on. It had to be better than anyone expected. It had to be better than anything I'd done before. And I would approach everything like that, which creates really good quality output, but it's absolutely soul destroying when you're doing that for every part of your job. And so compartmentalizing my stress and anxiety and delivering at such a high quality burnt me out to the extent that I was barely even functioning as a person. And it That's why I take such long breaks off of work in my downtime, because I'm recovering and it's really unhealthy. So as many skills and I was packing learning skills into my job as well. So I was learning skills and I kept trying to do more, kept trying to be that A player, A candidate. And it was great because I kept getting external validation for it. I kept getting like, wow, Jess, you're so amazing. You can do all of these great things. And so I became a little bit addicted to the external validation that people were giving me. And if I did something that was really great and I knew it was great, people started to expect it from me. So that validation stops because you keep doing these amazing things and you're still putting the same amount of effort into creating these perfect deliverables, but the validation stops. So then you try to one up yourself and one up yourself and one up yourself, and it is completely exhausting. I swear it's what gives people autoimmune diseases in a work context, because you burn yourself physically, mentally, just flat out. And at the end of it, not that it wasn't worth it, but I didn't feel better. For instance, even at the company that I'm at, I'm really proud of the awards that I display, that I've been able to win on behalf of the company. But once I got to it and reflecting on it, it didn't make me feel better or amazing for any reason. It's really good validation to win an award. And it was a really rigorous process that I went through in order to secure those for our company. And it was a great validation of work. But at the end of it, I didn't feel like I was on top of the world. And it makes you reevaluate why you're doing something. Because eventually, once you stop caring about the external validation, it really doesn't matter how many awards you win, they're not going to make you feel better. So it's a catch-22. It's in my early years of work, I became really addicted to the highs of people praising me for the work that I was doing. It got to a point where it became unsustainable. And then I got to a point where I didn't really care whether I got that external validation. And it's a nice point to get to, because then you start doing things that you actually want for yourself instead of for the reaction that you think it's going to garner from the people around you. Because I was getting compliments, I was getting well dones, and they just weren't hitting well. They weren't sitting well with me. People would be like, you're amazing. And I feel like an imposter. I feel like out of my skin kind of thing. I didn't want compliments. I didn't want well dones. But if I didn't get it, it was a problem as well. So it's a conundrum. It's not something that I'd advocate for. I know people look at it and they think it's amazing, but it's genuinely, in those years of my life, it was absolute hell on earth, and it really took a toll on me. And I'm an exhausted 28-year-old for it, for doing so much. So it's a different perspective. It's something people like to glorify, but it's something that I really like to represent realistically.
I think that is really dope of you, because so many people wouldn't mind carrying on the facade of Jessica's amazing. She's dealing with her own mental health issues, but look at all the things she achieves. And a lot of people would be okay with just standing back and being like, thank you, or not even thank you, just sitting back and letting people say these things without mentioning all the awful times behind it, without saying we need to stop glorifying this, without mentioning the downside, the negative side of all of this. I think people are so okay with just standing back and letting things happen and letting people perceive things the way they want to be perceived, that not enough people in your position, who from the outside seem to be doing amazing, are standing up and actually saying, this is not what you want, and this is not what you should be striving for in life.
Absolutely.
And I think sometimes the fear in admitting that there's a struggle to this, you almost risk validating the imposter, those imposter thoughts. It's a vicious cycle. I think not just in the workspace, Jess, but in general life, if you rely on the validation of others, it's a messy cycle to get into, because people learn that they can withhold that validation from you and cause for you to want to perform even more. And so knowing when to validate yourself and say this is enough, and not relying on the likes on your Instagram picture or the followers or the, I think it's a life lesson to be learned for every area of our lives.
Yes, Jess, I think there needs to be more advocates like this who will advocate for the people who are thriving in their career, but mentally it is not what it appears to be. I think people are so used to seeing the people that are downtrodden and that have hit rock bottom, that are like, learn from my mistakes, this is what I went through, that there aren't enough people literally at the height of their careers and at the peak of their professions and doing their ideal jobs and thriving and doing amazingly. There aren't enough of those ambassadors who are like, listen, guys, it all looks wonderful and my job is incredible, but the journey to get here has been hell. It has been garbage and it's not worth it. There need to be more advocates like that of successful people, of people killing it in their career, of people who love what they do, who work for wonderful people, who find themselves in a position now that they can be like, the 6 years before this, no, guys. Instead of just shedding light on the amazingness that is now.
Yeah. And some of us never hit rock bottom. It doesn't make our journey any less worth mentioning. It doesn't make the lesson any less impactful. Some of us can be in a cycle of absolute hell, but it's technically not rock bottom. You haven't lost everything. You haven't gotten to a point of despair, but it's still a point of anguish. It's still a point where it's something you need to get out of, but it's not that underdog story that people love to hold on to. Like, everything was taken away and they built themselves up from nothing. I still have stuff, but I'm still struggling immensely with a lot of parts of life. And my experience shouldn't be invalidated or not looked to as a lesson just because it wasn't this big roller coaster of being at the top and then falling from success and hitting rock bottom. I think it's a more accurate representation of life, and we should speak about these life experiences more. We love the story of a Richard Branson. We love the story of companies that came out of people's garages, but other companies came about over 15 years of consistent work from someone who never hit rock bottom, but they never had an easy road either. And I think that's the majority, but people like to hold on to these unrealistic nuggets of hope where they're like, this person came from nothing and they made it, and I've got like a few steps up, so I can do the same thing. It's not comparable, and I think we should be telling more normal, more human stories and just disseminating that information more than the outlier underdog story.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. I see that awareness as well in my workplace. In October, we had Mental Health Month, and we were doing little nuggets of mindful quotes, meditations just before we started our shifts and our work shifts, that is. And more people have been open about talking about their mental health and their struggles. And like, actually, I'm not holding up really well, and it's not as great as I'm putting it out to be. And that real experience sharing, I think, helps us do better in the workplace. It helps us look for ways on how to support our mental health when we are at work. Because to your point, if you love what you do, but it's hurting your mental health, then you don't want to have to leave doing what you love doing so that you can have better mental health. How can the place where you are in support your mental health while you continue to do what you love doing? We're going to get into the conversation about what we think workplaces can do to support our mental health and well-being. And I know that, Jess, you've been an advocate in the space and you've also briefly shared some things, but I really want to know, like, this is a question that is top of my mind. Do you guys feel the education we received in college was beneficial and adequately prepared us for the careers we're now in? Naledi, I know you've studied a couple of things as well. I heard interior design earlier.
The answer is no. But at the same time, it depends on you as an individual. So Jess studied a BCom, then went into the strategic stream, and that's exactly what she's doing. So I don't think it was wasted in that regard. And I've studied many a thing. And even though I'm not doing any of that professionally, I don't think that any of it was a waste. I think all of it was beneficial. Education and knowledge can only be beneficial. I love the fact that I have an understanding of so many different types of jobs and specific things in specific industries. Even though I'm not using that right now to make money, I'm definitely a richer person for that. Now, the amount of money put in compared to what I got out, that might be a different conversation. As soon as we all finished our BComs, I learned very quickly that getting a job is rarely about what you studied. It is more about who you know, first of all. And then they're going to throw a spanner in the works like experience. And those are the two biggest things. Throughout my life of trying to get jobs and getting jobs, I have been qualified for almost like one job that I've ever gotten. I've had about like 6, 7 jobs since I've started working. I've been qualified for one. Every other job I've gotten through meeting someone who liked my vibes. Truly. Or someone's dad, or someone's uncle, or my dad's friend. And none of those people were interested in what I studied. They were more interested in the type of person I am and how I handled on site training and the initial training at work. And I think that's the thing. No matter what you studied at university, as soon as you find yourself in the workplace, even if it's what you studied, you will go through an entire different training that prepares you for that workplace, not the industry, not business, not marketing, not that, but that workplace, that specific workplace. And you will always get beaten out by someone with experience, no matter what they studied. If they've got experience, you were being beaten out.
Yeah.
So I'm a richer person for going to university and getting the opportunity to study all of these things. But if I'm looking at the average individual who goes to university or college just so they can secure themselves a job in a specific industry, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if it's worth it. I literally worked at a security technologies company. I managed accounts and relationships with big clients. I had zero qualification for that. Like zero. Guys, I knew nothing. But the position they put me in, because of someone I knew, because of the person I am and how quick I am to grasp concepts and how quick I am to learn and how well I am and how good I am at just forming relationships with people. That is what got me every single job that I've ever gotten.
Networking. It's who you know. Definitely who you know.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And also just like you as an individual.
Yes.
It truly is you as an individual. Your personality will get you, well, maybe it's just me, I don't know. My personality has gotten me places where education could never have.
Yeah.
Where my qualifications, my degrees, my certificates wouldn't even get me, well, they would, but they did not influence the jobs I got at all. And people took my personality at face value. Someone would meet me and be like, you should come for an interview. And I'd be like, sir, I don't even know what you do. They're like, nah, come through. And that's genuinely just based purely on my vibes. That's why I have such a big head about starting every sort of business known to man, because I've never been turned down. Because people tend to trust what I have to say.
Yes.
And even if I come from a place of ignorance in a specific field, I come with passion and with chutzpah and with energy and with this go-getter attitude. And sometimes that's genuinely all you need to succeed.
Yeah.
Learn along the way, like Jess said. Follow Jess, be like Jess.
Yes.
Get all these skills along the way. But that initial foot in the door, that's not education. That's not my BCom.
Yeah.
So is that, I don't know how much we paid for it. What was it, guys? Like 50,000, 80,000? I don't know how much we paid.
Yeah.
I don't think it was 100% worth it.
Yeah. It definitely has a lot to do with personality, networking, and putting yourself out there. I too, like yourself, I think I only had one job in the when we graduated 2016. I've had one job from then that was truly aligned to what I studied. Outside of that, I've done strange things like web design, and like Jess, I've had to like learn on the fly how to do that. Customer service is something, the funny thing is when you fall into an industry, no matter what it is, if you stay in that industry long enough, that ends up being where your job opportunities will lie. It's very hard to switch industries. When I went to college or university, it's different. The United States, they call it college, university. I never know the difference. But when I went to university, I really wanted a job in like investment banking. I was like, finance, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to work for the banks and I'm going to talk all about investments. And I have used very little, if any of it, to influence how I get an income. I've used it for myself. I'm like, yeah, I understand the stock market and where to go and where to put my money. And I've made some money on the stock market too. But I had such high hopes and I was just crushed because, to your point, Naledi, that experience, you get into the banking industry and they're like, well, we're looking for 12 years of experience. And I'm like, 12 years? I'm not even, I don't know how to.
You're like, ma'am, I'm 22.
How do I get 12 years of experience if you won't employ me, but then I need it in order to get this job? But I also paid for this degree that fortunately for me, I had a sponsorship. So I don't owe anyone for my degree and I didn't have to go pay some student loans and stuff. But I imagine you still have these student loans that you have to pay, but they also want this experience and you're at a catch-22. You're like, how do I go forward in this? And so you end up just taking whatever job so that you can pay whatever loans that you've had. And now you're stuck in this industry because you've been in it for long and you're trying to climb up the corporate ladder in that said industry. And hopefully, if you're lucky enough, it's an industry where you can climb up the corporate ladder. Otherwise, you are a doctor making $15 an hour at McDonald's, Very interesting across the board, both internationally as well as in South Africa. College education is expensive. It's getting even more and more expensive. Naledi, you say you don't remember how much we paid. I think first year it was 50, second year it was like 80, and then like third year it was around like 80, 95. But it's like 150,000 Rand now, first year at VC. The same kind of stuff that we've done, that's what it's going for.
Yep.
No. I am so glad I have not had to pay for any sort of education. That is insanity.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, Mpho, so many people have to take out student loans. Then you're there for 3 years. You can't get a job because you have no experience. You get a job that pays way less. You get trapped in that because you're climbing the ladder in that company. Now the thing that you worked to pay off isn't even benefiting your life right now. It's a scam. What do you think, Jessica?
I have such a different perspective because I'm so grateful for the opportunity to be educated at the level that I am. I was very fortunate, and I am very fortunate still because I'm still benefiting from it. I've been that bursary kid. So I managed to get a private high school education off of a bursary, and it wasn't a complete bursary, but nonetheless, I was eternally grateful. Going into VC, I also had a 50% bursary. And then in my honors year, the entire year was basically comped on UJ, which I am immensely grateful for. And it's changed my life forever. Just the one, private education, and then two, being able to take my tertiary education to a postgraduate level. There was a lot that I learned at VC. A lot of it was theoretical, and only in the work environment did I realize that theory and practice do not translate one-to-one. And that was the biggest learning curve, I think, because when you're fresh out of university, you have all this knowledge that you want to apply, and then it's like trying to stick the wrong shape block into like a mold that it doesn't fit. And it's not neat. It's really untidy. Business is messy. It's not clear cut like the case studies we read and the tests that we write that there's memos written on. there's no memo for an actual real life business with people's lives and people's money at stake. So one of the biggest learning curves was realizing that you can apply theory, but that's all you're doing. You're applying it to a real life situation, and you need to adapt it accordingly. So in terms of was it worth it financially, I've gained such huge return on investment, mostly because a majority of my education was largely subsidized, which was great for me. And I think part of that made me so much more grateful for my education, because I knew that without that, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have been able to capitalize on those opportunities and get the degrees that I have. One thing that has stuck with me is in my postgraduate year, when I did my honors in strategic management, it completely changed the way I think about so many things, because that was the first time that philosophy as a subject in business was presented to me, where you start to question things like capitalism, where you start to question where the models and behaviors that we apply in business and just in life, where they come from and if they're still valid, because we're following a lot of models that have been come up with a minimum of 20 to 100 years ago, and we're still applying them now as if they're relevant, and they're not, and that adaptation hasn't taken place. So in my final year, and I say final year, but I'm going to continue studying when the opportunity presents itself, but in my last year of studying, it was just this fundamental shift in the way that I thought about everything. And without that, I don't think I would be where I am. I think I would have been satisfied in my initial jobs. I would never have gone above and beyond to progress myself, not just to progress in a work environment. And I mean, when we talk about things like the corporate ladder, and I think we're going to get to it later on in the podcast, my initial thought on that is the only way to climb the corporate ladder is to remove the ladder. The ladder is what's keeping everyone slowly but surely climbing. And it's something that you need to remove in order for people to stop thinking about moving up and start thinking about moving forward. Because you can keep climbing up all you want and never move forward in your life. But once you stop trying to climb that and start trying to move forward, your life changes forever.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you, Jess. Can I say that again? I'm so proud of you.
You can.
For having the mental capacity to continue pursuing the opportunities that were presented to you. I know a lot of people who get the bursaries, but they flake out or feel like this is just too much. I can't meet the expectations. One of the conditions that the bursary that I got in my halfway through my first year at VC, the condition was I pass all of my subjects and I don't have to pay back the money. If I don't drop out and if I pass all of my subjects, then what are they called? Modules. Listen to me talk about it like it's high school. If I pass all of my modules, I don't have to pay back the money. But in the event that I fail those modules, I have to pay it back immediately, not in some future date or what. All the monies become payable immediately. And if there's repeat modules, I am liable to pay the fees for the repeat modules. And so it was a lot of pressure. I was like, man, if I fail, do I have the money? Do I have the money to immediately pay back? And this is how, I was always competing with you and a bunch of other people. And I was like, okay, I'm going to be like top 5, top 4. I'm hitting it because there was a lot at stake. I knew that at home, we didn't have the money to pay it back. And so I needed to grab all of this opportunity that I have now. And who knows, like it never comes around again, like you flake out now and you're like, oh, maybe I'll come back and maybe I'll reapply for the same bursary. But that initial trust that they had in you and you let them down, they may second time around be like, we gave you the money and you didn't do the right things, we're giving someone else the money because someone else is ready for the opportunity and goes. So there's a lot of components that go into it, right? You can have an opportunity available to you, but are you mentally able to take it on and perform as the expectations of that opportunity are? So proud of you for doing that and for continuing to pursue your education like that, honors and, you know.
I mean, it's Jessica Mpho. What do you expect?
It's just making us look bad. I'm contemplating the whole, should I stay friends with her? Now I'm thinking I'm like, Jess is so great. She's so brilliant. But I'm like, maybe I'm starting to feel bad about myself at this rate.
No, Mpho, this is...
I can bring you back down to earth if you want, with the saying that I'm doing all these amazing things. I have a hard lesson in bursaries as well, and that is, when you're a teenager and when you're in high school, you do things that get you into trouble, and it's just a part of life, and it's part of those learning things. You do it in varsity as well, you mess up. In high school, the opportunity to mess up and to get into trouble safely was taken away from me because I was permanently scared of losing my bursary if I ever got into a serious amount of trouble at school. So I wasn't a good student because I'm a good person. I was a good student because I was terrified of the consequences of not being able to continue my education if my bursary was taken away from me. And even at varsity college, they never placed tacit expectations on me explicit expectations on me where they were like, you are liable for XYZ. But I had this internal pressure that if I didn't perform, if I wasn't on the student liaison body, if I didn't do all of these things to show how grateful I was for the bursary, that they would stop giving them out, or they wouldn't give me the same bursary in the next year, because I had to technically earn the bursary every single year for it to be re-awarded to me. And so as grateful as I am, I'm immensely grateful because it's changed my life, as I've said. But there is a cost to everything. And there's certain life experiences that I will never be able to go back and get just for the pure sake of, technically it's not debt, but it's like you feel indebted to an institution or an organization for the opportunity that they've given you, knowing that you wouldn't be able to do it without it. And it's even one of the reasons in my fourth year that I was a tutor at UJ, because I felt like I needed to give back even more. I needed to do something to be worthy of this bursary. I needed to give back where I can and do more. And just doing a degree it's enough work. It's so much. It's so taxing. It's so hard. And it's like this unsaid, unexplained pressure you feel as a bursary student. So I understand why a lot of bursary students drop out. I understand why the pressure gets too much, that they can't consistently perform on someone else's expectation. So that's just a little dose of reality. It's an amazing achievement, and I'm not taking away, because I've worked exceptionally hard for everything. Even to get the bursaries, there's adjudication processes. You have to motivate to them why you are the best possible person for this, because they also want return. They genuinely don't want someone who's going to mess around with their money, and they've given you an opportunity for a free year of education or more. So it's something you have to work for, but it's not something that comes without its cost.
Naledi, before just started, you were going to say something.
I think the only thing I can take from the last few minutes of this conversation is I am very privileged. It might be easy for me to say things like, I don't think it was worth the money, and I'm here unemployed, still living a very good life. But hearing your experiences, whether you think it was worth it or not, just everything that goes behind the decision you make is loaded with so much more. Whereas the only thing behind my decision is, right now, am I using the degree? And the answer is no.
It's
So
still
yeah,
a
I
valid
think.
perspective to bring in,
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
for sure, for
yeah, yeah,
sure. But I think it's it's an eye opener to see how basically the same university experience for all three of us, how it was so different. We walked through the corridors, and all of us were fairly smart. We were just living, but my experience compared to your experiences, now that I look at it, very different.
yeah,
I was just living. I did what I wanted. I was like, sometimes I was like, hey, look who got these 80%. And sometimes I was like, hey, 52, I passed. Like, there
yeah,
was close, there was zero pressure.
yeah,
And the only pressure was I knew how much money my parents were paying for this, and I knew I needed to pass. But other than that, I was living. And
yeah,
after that, I didn't feel this could be me being a brat. I didn't feel like indebted to my parents, like you guys may have felt to the people who helped you get those qualifications.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's eye opening.
yeah.
And yeah, while I appreciate everything my parents do because they afforded me a very wonderful life, I've never felt that like I owe them because they did this for me. I've
You
always
shouldn't though. Yeah.
exactly I've always felt they're
Yeah.
my parents. They can and they did.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you,
Yes.
mom and dad, but not like, oh, the rest of my years I'm going to be showing them that their invested money paid off, and I'm going to climb these
Yeah.
ranks. I'm going to mark it all the way to the top.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But yes, eye opening. I'm glad we had this question
Yes. Yes. And it
because
still
yeah,
brings everyone's experience in. Someone else may be listening to this and has had Naledi's experience, or has had Jess's experience, or has had my experience, and so we're a
exactly.
healthy group of experiences.
There we go.
So moving the conversation along, I know we are at the top of the hour and we're going to try our best to wrap it up in 20 minutes, but if we don't, just forgive and love us. We are good people, seriously. Naledi, as someone who's experienced both being a successful entrepreneur and a stifled employee, what was navigating each of these career paths like for you?
Well, the best point to compare would be my overall just happiness or just calm feeling. I think I'm happier and calmer and at ease working for myself only because you eliminate the toxicity of certain work environments. I think certain environments can be so hostile, and you work with problematic colleagues, and there's so much just internal conflict and issues and office politics that it takes away from what you're there to do, and that's to get a job done. When I eliminated all those distractions, and all of that comes with anxiety, making sure you're not pissing off one colleague, making sure your boss is in a good mood and you hope he likes what you're giving him, making sure that the team that you're working with, everyone actually did their part or not, making sure that like you have your relationships with your clients and everyone is happy, and you hope that what they say to you is what they say to your boss. Like, you literally just eliminate all of that and you can focus just on working. And I think that's what I love the most about working for myself is I have that ease, I have that calm, and I have that happiness. The level of which I work remains the same. I'm a hard worker regardless. I work hard for other people because they're paying me to do a certain job, and I'm going to do said job. But I'm a hard worker for myself because this is my passion. I've put my money into this, and whether it succeeds or it fails, that's on me. So I work hard in both situations, but taking away the distraction, the fear, the anxiety, the weight of working in a corporate environment makes being an entrepreneur the best option for me and makes working something I actually enjoy. I think as human beings, to some extent, we want to work, or we want to keep busy, or we want to produce something at the end of the day. And whether that's working for someone else, whether that's being a stay-at-home mother, whether that's working for yourself, whatever that looks like to you, I think we all want to be doing something that makes us happy.
Yeah.
And me doing that something that makes me happy is me working for myself. We all want to make that money. I just have an option of making that money without the added pressures and anxiety triggers of a formal workplace.
Yeah. Yeah. I really enjoy that mental health perspective that you both have brought to the conversation in the workplace. People tend to separate that, like, my mental health issues are just one little box here and my work is one little box here, but those two are so intertwined that they have to work together for one to experience full balance. One slopsides this way, you you risk your mental health taking a dip as well. Your career slopsides this way, you risk, so they're married and they're intertwined. And I love the perspective that you both have brought in that regard, bringing people more to that awareness that, hey, mental health just doesn't happen outside of your house with your friends and in your personal life. It also happens in the workplace, and we can bring these conversations into the workplace. I never thought about, having to, maybe it's a people pleaser trait, having to sway to your boss's mood. I like when you said that, I'm like, oh, I've done that before. You've had to kind of shape your personality to accommodate your team or the people that you're working with, and that you don't piss off one coworker. And that can be stressful, to just not be able to be yourself and to have to show up in the specific character that meets everyone's needs. If you work in a small company, maybe it's better. But if you work in a bigger company with a lot more people, with myself, I'm dealing with maybe say 40 customers on the weekend and like maybe 30 during the week, just having to change my character. And if this customer is upset or if this customer is happy, just moving with their moods can be exhausting, mentally and physically too. One of my customers walked in the other day and they were like, you look so happy. You must only be working here for a couple of months. And I'm like, no, I've been here for 2 years. And I told one of my other coworkers, and they're like, no, we're just all dead inside. We just do this happy face, but deep inside, we're just dying, all of us. And I'm like, I don't know if I do that, but I know that I'm genuinely happy to work with and to help people use our products and understand it. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy to be here in the moment that I'm here, but I also want my mental health supported as well. Jess, you have truly mastered the 20-something career world, like awards. If we were talking boss babe, you'd be it. What is the secret to breaking those proverbial glass ceilings and successfully climbing up the corporate ladder? Take away the corporate ladder, you said.
I did. And I'll get into that and why I don't think the ladder is the way to go. But I think it's really important for people to establish kind of what their jam is. Like I think everyone should work for a corporate at some point in time, work for a small business, work for an MPO, and try working for yourself and see what it is that flows with you. Because I didn't enjoy a corporate job, but being an entrepreneur, I knew that I would sacrifice so many things that were really important to me, such as family time, time with my friends. Because of that perfectionist nature, because of that overachiever, I knew that I would do anything in my power to make sure that a business that was my own was successful at any cost. So I would sacrifice things that were really important to me. And I made a decision pretty early on that that's not the kind of life that I wanted for myself. There were things that hold importance that I knew I would not be able to resist the urge to sacrifice just in pursuit of success. So I found it's kind of like the ugly stepsister of entrepreneurship, but it's intrapreneurship. And that is where I found my niche. And it's because I like taking risks, but with other people's money. I like the safety of a job. I like being risky, being innovative, and being creative in a space where other people or the business money is being funded, because the consequences of that in a small business, it can be large if you make a mistake. But in a business that's a bit bigger, that has funds to spare, where they like to run these experiments, you can do really great things and you still get that entrepreneurship high, but you're still getting your salary at the end of the day. And yes, it's a business environment. You have to report into people, but it's a different kind of thing that I think is often overlooked, because people think that you need to either work a desk job or a 9 to 5 kind of thing, or be an entrepreneur. Like there's no in between. or you work your desk job and you have your side hustles. But I think a lot of people end up just working themselves to death in that kind of environment. So entrepreneurship allows those two kind of things to merge, where you can put your passions into the business that you're working for and get that kind of alignment. And I think it's hugely beneficial. It's something that even tertiary education institutes should focus a lot more on, because I think in the context of South Africa, especially, we get so much more benefit out of fostering that kind of a role, as opposed to trying to pressure young people into starting their own businesses and employing their nation when they don't even have basic work experience. They haven't learned those hard lessons that you learn through your initial work life. And I have so much advice, because I've been through the most in terms of shifting jobs and experiencing a corporate and experiencing a smaller, more agile business. And I say small business, but the business I'm working for now has been around for 20 years and has weathered some ups and downs, but they've managed to remain tight-knit and agile, and it's hugely appealing. So when we talk about the corporate ladder, the reason that I say that you have to remove the ladder is because when I shifted from a corporate environment to a smaller business environment, there was no ladder that I had to climb. They created a position that didn't exist just so that they could employ me. They let me define my role and evolve my role, so I was still moving forward. My role was still getting better. My responsibility was still expanding, but there was no set bandwidth that I had to be like, okay, I'm at this level. It wasn't you come in as an intern, then you become a manager, or you come in as an intern, then you're permanent, then a manager, then a senior manager, then an executive. It's not that kind of thing. The organizational structure is so flat that you have a door in to top level management as an intern. You have that direct communication, whereas in a corporate, I experienced to my own detriment, the layers upon layers upon layers that I had to go through just to speak to someone who could make a decision. And I felt very exploited in that environment. I felt very undervalued. And it wasn't by my team that I was working with. I absolutely loved everyone that I worked with in that corporate environment. But with so many business units and so many disjointed areas of the business, I couldn't reconcile the love that I had for my team with this overarching corporate beast. And that is where, in a work environment where I found myself the most depressed, the most anxious, and there were a lot of lessons that I learned in that corporate environment. So I say that people need to find their jam, and it's because some people thrive off of that climb. They really want it. They want to see that they are shifting those levels. It's what keeps them going, because it's their sense of motivation. It's like something that you can tick off. And if it's for you, great. I personally just found it extremely demotivating. I worked at a corporate for 2 years. I got, I think, 4 increases and 3 job title changes. So I went from an intern to a permanent consultant to a project administrator. At the end of it, the wage that I was getting was still unlivable for my standard of living that I've experienced my whole life. It was unsustainable. 4 increases in 2 years, and I still couldn't be proud of the wage that I was getting at the end of it. And that's what I mean by that ladder, those layers. That's something that they would probably think I should be proud of. 4 increases and 3, we made you permanent. You had a good role, then you got a promotion. I'm like, promoted to what? Vice president of level 1.1. Like, how am I meant to be okay with that? And so shifting to an organization that has a very low hierarchy is such a different experience. The empowerment is immense because you're speaking directly to decision makers. You're speaking to game changers. You're speaking to people who are going to action the things that you say. If I had a great idea in a corporate and I wanted to present that, the levels of approval I'd have to get in itself and the amount of time it took to get something done that was something we needed to act on pretty quickly. It was like the stuff that gives you competitive advantage. It became redundant by the time you got the approval or disapproval. And generally, it wouldn't get approved. Too risky, not in line with this, no budget for that, doesn't meet business requirements. And so if you're that kind of person who's a go-getter and you really want the best for a business, I don't think a corporate environment is it. Just because of the bureaucracy, the company politics, the layers that you have to go through. But apart from that, whatever route you choose, whether it's starting your own business, going into a small agile business, going into a corporate, there's a few things over the years that I've learned. And one of them is don't be afraid to change, not just positions. You can change positions in the company. Don't be afraid to shift companies. A lot of people, and I know this is speaking from a position of privilege because a lot of people don't have the opportunity to just change jobs because they want to. But this is probably advice for people who are looking for changes to elevate themselves. So my advice would be change your business regularly enough to elevate your position. And when I say elevate, I mean it must be financial, it must be skills, or it must be power. So if you stay in a business for 10 years, you're going to get the increments. You're going to get the incremental increases, the incremental promotions, and maybe a bonus once every 2 years, maybe once a year, maybe never. But when you stay at places for very extended periods, it's called 10 years, it's an incremental experience. When you start shifting, let's say, every 4 years or even 2 years, because that's what I did previously was 2 years and then I'd move on 2 years, then I'd move on. And I'm in my 4th year where I am, and I'm very happy because I'm in a good position and my experience hasn't been incremental. And that's just because of the bargaining power that I have as a very valued member of the business. But when people are wanting to change positions or change businesses, use it as an opportunity for elevation. And how you do that is, one, do not show your new or prospective new company your pay slips. One, I don't think it's legal. And two, it's completely irrelevant. You demand the salary that you think is fair for the position. You can ask them for a salary band to see what is the lowest amount they're going to pay and what the highest amount they're going to pay is. Don't give them your previously underpaid pay slip for them to be like, well, we're giving them 10,000 Rand more than what they were earning, so they're going to be very grateful for this position. No, you are taking your own power away when you do those kinds of things. So shift businesses frequently enough to elevate yourself, whether it's money, skills, or power. I think that should always be your goal. Obviously, people do like to make a lateral move where they stay in the same position. But I think if you're wanting to progress yourself, there should be some benefit to the move, not just a change in scenery and work environment. And then, as much as I would discourage people from showing pay slips to the people who are going to employ them, people in the same or similar positions as you, share what you are earning. Tell people what your salary is. Companies have made it taboo to tell people what you are earning. And it's so that they can pay certain people less and certain people more for whatever reasons that they dictate. If you are doing the same job as someone, you should know what they are earning. And this has come from examples where certain people have families and other people don't. So they justify paying the person without a family, let's call it, less because they have less financial responsibility. If you are producing the same output, it doesn't matter what your rationalization is. You cannot pay someone more just because they may have greater obligations. A lot of people don't disclose all the information about them and who is dependent on them. And you find that people negotiate in those ways. And if you've negotiated something for a particular reason, when you discuss your salary with someone in a similar position, you empower them to negotiate themselves higher as well. And you're only elevating everyone around you. So that's another thing. And it's a difficult topic because people don't want to disclose that. They don't want to be open and honest about that. But with people in similar positions, the only way that we could get our salaries increased was by talking to each other about what that was and what we expected and what we thought was fair. And we're like, okay, we're getting paid the same amount, but it's not anything that we want to be paid. We work together to further ourselves. So it's those kinds of conversations that you need to have in order to progress further. And by gatekeeping that kind of information, you're punishing yourselves and everyone around you. You should want to elevate other people. It should be your goal. And then I think a last little lesson is stop separating work and business. If you feel like you have to do that, then you probably hate your job. I spend the majority of my day and the majority of my week and year working. Make sure the people that you work with are people that you like. Develop close bonds with your managers, with your co-workers. Not everyone, you're not guaranteed to like everyone in a company. But if you can't develop close bonds with the people that you work with on a daily basis without worrying that they're going to use that information against you, stab you in the back, or tell on you, those are not the right people. And once again, I know it's a privileged position to be able to do this, but it shouldn't be. It should be the case that you love your co-workers. And it is the case for me. The majority of the people that I work with, I have a really close bond with a lot of them. I have invested in those relationships. I want to know how your partner's doing. I want to know how your kids are doing. I want to know how your pets are doing. Tell me all of that stuff. We're having a conversation. We are living life together. And immediately I don't trust people who separate work and life, because work is life. When you spend 8+ hours a day, 5+ days a week of your time working, why would you not invest in those relationships? Why would you try to separate them out? Why would you be scared that your coworkers are going to disclose something about you that they shouldn't? Why can't you have those conversations with your manager? Why aren't you having those conversations with your manager? I can tell you now, there is no conversation that I have not had with my boss. Not one. He knows everything. I'm going through a crisis. He knows. I'm going through a breakup. He knows. I'm feeling really bad. He knows. I have food poisoning. He knows. Everything. There is not a single conversation that I've not had with him, and it's because I trust him and I trust my colleagues, and it won't always be applicable to everyone in your organization. You don't have to invest in every single person because it's exhausting. Some people just aren't for you. But those close-knit people, those people that you're working with on a daily basis, if you're not vibing with them, you're not in the right place. It's so important. That's why people are depressed. That's why people are unhappy, because there's no safe space for them. So they have to take their workload home, unload it on their families and their friends, instead of being able to have a even share of burden across work and life. Because it's intertwined, it's one, it's together. So I think that's one thing to round up the conversation, is just share information with your peers, hold information from certain people who might use it to play down your role in a company. And I know it's kind of a juxtaposition. Going into a company, there's certain things that you don't want to be forthcoming about because it disadvantages you to do that. And you want to be treated in a way you believe you deserve, and not off of what your previous experience or pay was. So, and then just lastly, going into a new company, be upfront and honest in the interview process. I always like to end any kind of interview or conversation about work with, here's some things you should know about me. And I did this going into the company that I was hired into. And to provide full context, I wasn't even hired in there off of an interview. I was brought in for a conversation. It was a chat. And it kind of turned into an interview like halfway through the chat. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm interviewing for a job right now. And before ending the interview, I was like, listen, there's a few things you should know about me. One, I do not do early morning meetings. I'm not a morning person. and I'm not about to be a morning person for a job. It's just not going to happen. Please set meetings with me 9 o'clock or past. Anything earlier, I know I'm not at my best. So just because you want work productivity, don't do that. I said, I'm dressed really nicely today because I have respect for the conversation that we have. But further down the line, I'm a jeans and t-shirt to work kind of person because I don't feel comfortable in, let's call it, corporate attire. I like to work flexible hours because I don't think of productivity as a beginning hour and an end hour. My productivity differs every day. So my working hours are going to differ every day. And occasionally I will come to work with blue hair. And they were like, great, love it. Thank you for being honest. And that is how I've built my career going forward. I work flexible hours. I try my best not to have a meeting before 9 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but for the most part, everyone respects that. No one is setting 7 o'clock meetings with me because they know that I don't like it. No one is saying, well, she came to work in a hoodie today, because I set that expectation from the beginning. So if working for yourself isn't what you want, there are ways to not even hack the system. I think it's what the system should be. There are ways to take advantage of the system of work that it doesn't feel like work versus life. It's work is life. And these are your boundaries. These are your expectations. Put them into your work. My rant is over.
I think
Yay,
you
Jessica.
can tell how passionate Jess is about this topic. Like, I was just sitting back and getting schooled. What about you, Naledi? Were you getting schooled?
Oh, 100%. I was like, good Lord, where are all the Jessicas of the world? Let's unite. Let's change the system. Let's get rid of glass ceilings. We don't need ceilings. Get rid of them ladders. I'm all for it. Jess should start an revolution, sorry.
One important thing that Jess had mentioned about talking to your coworkers about how much you're getting paid. One of the things that I found was Glassdoor. I think you can go on to glassdoor.com, search a position, and then see what the people in that position are getting paid. Not only that, you can see some of the pros and the cons for the company and what the company rating is, how people feel about it. It's anonymous, but it's reliable in helping you determine if there isn't anyone to talk about how much should you be getting paid, or if people are not open to that conversation. There is an online resource. I believe you have to open an account with a Gmail address, but then once you're in, you can search that information freely and educate yourself, because it's an important part. It's how you can support your standard of living, to Jess's point. But we are at least an hour, 30 minutes into this. Our sincere apologies. We hope that you have enjoyed all of our conversations. We have come from the heart. We have shared freely. We have been vulnerable with you. If anyone wants to sponsor a TV show for us called The Millennial Perspective, or wants to have us start another podcast that continues this Millennial Perspective series, just hit me up. My email's in there. Slide into Jess's DM, slide into Jessica's DM. We are open. We're looking for different ways to work. And if you're willing to pay us, if you're willing to risk your money on us, we're good people. We'll make this investment work. We
have Jess. She will make sure it works.
Yes.
There's no other option.
If ever there's a doubt, just rewind to Jess's part of the podcast. That should make you feel secure in your decision.
Yes. Jess will, what did you call it? The adjudication process. You will adjudicate for us.
There we go.
Please. I've enjoyed this. Somewhere middle of the year, we will come back again and have a conversation about racial talk. Naledi said that no one's ever turned her down. It's because she speaks so well. It's literally because she speaks so well.
You know, Mpho.
So much fun. Any final thoughts? We've talked about mental health, relationships, career. How do we wrap this up? If no one sponsors us, let's change their mind one more time. How do we wrap up this 3-part conversation?
I don't know if this is I don't know if it's going to get us sponsors, but I was just going to say, just do what makes your soul happy. I think there's so many rules in life. There's so many roadmaps, the way you should be living, and there's so many opinions and perspectives of how you should do things and why you should do things this way and do things that way. At the end of the day, honestly, you have a limited amount of time here. The majority of that time, you should be happy. Like, I hate this concept of like at least 50-50. No, your life shouldn't be 50% miserable. I'm sorry. No.
Yeah.
It should not. And that is not what you should stride for. Sorry. You should not stride for 50-50. So do what makes your heart happy. Date the people who actually bring you joy and make you happy. Do the jobs and pick the jobs and work in the places that actually make your life bearable. Look for work environments like Jess's. And like she's saying, it's not for everyone, but if that opportunity presents itself, then go for it. Like she was saying, the majority of your life you actually spend at work. Why not make work a good place to be? So yeah, I'm tired of people half-assing happiness and joy. It's been put on the pedestal, like in like the back foot. I don't know, guys, my English is going. But I'm tired of people making happiness not a priority. And we've been taught that happiness isn't a priority. We've been taught that responsibilities and work and making your family and friends happy and being an upholding member of society, that's what's important in life. And I agree with none of that. If you can live your very best happy life without hurting anyone else, then do it at all costs. That's my 2 cents.
I told you it's $3 worth, not $2. It's $3 worth. Yes. Adjudicate for us.
Adjudicate. I would just say that I'm very hopeful for the future of work. I'm very hopeful to see people who are a little bit like-minded, who share some of my philosophies. I think the future of work is dignified work. I think it's work that is not minimum wage based, because that's not a thing that we are calculating wages on. I think it is inclusive. I think it's human, and I am very excited to see how it develops. And I hope that it's an environment that keeps getting better and safer and more enjoyable for everyone to continue to operate in.
So many good things. I appreciate your friendship, your sisterhood, your willingness to work with crazy schedules. Crazy for me mostly, because I'm on the other side of the world. But for letting Soraya be on here in the earliest stages, I'm looking forward to our continued growth, our continued friendship. We should do this in person when I'm back in South Africa again. Just jam it out. Naledi has a great photographer, so we'll do a whole photo shoot. It will be a whole thing.
Yes.
Journey with Mpho family, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We appreciate you investing in learning from us and listening to our experiences. I will see you guys in the next episode. Just a little reminder, something that Naledi said, remember to live inside your body. A lot of our experiences and the things that happen to us in the world cause for us to check out of our bodies, to not be present and to go into survival mode. So as we go into this week, just check in with yourself, step into your body, see how it feels, sit with that uncomfortable feeling, sit with that anxiety for a little bit and see if we can work through it instead of disappear from it. Check into your body. I love you guys so much. I will catch you in the next episode. Until next time, maholo kwe, aloha.
Well, before you go, I wanted to thank you for taking the first step in supporting my journey by listening to this episode. The second big step would be exploring the various ways you can become an official supporter of my journey by signing up for our Patreon offerings. We offer some great benefits such as one-to-one phone calls and distance Reiki sessions with me. For more information, visit patreon.com/journey with Mpho. The link is in the episode notes. If you loved what you heard, then subscribe to the show and continue to share episodes that resonate with friends and family. If you're listening through Apple Podcasts, please take a few minutes to rate and review us so we can continue to get our content to the people who need it the most. We are serious about getting your feedback, so if you'd like to take the rating and review a step further, check out our feedback survey link in the episode notes. Your feedback will help us to continue offering content that matters to you and is worth your time. Finally, in this day and age, it apparently matters how many followers you have on social media, so go ahead and find us on Instagram at Journey with Mpho, and we promise to make it worth your while by sharing heart-centered, conscious content. Thank you for your continued support. I cannot wait to spend time with you again in the next episode.